Hello, my name is Dr. Matthew Robinson. Today I'm going to be talking about missions and visions and understanding your organization's purpose and its future aspirations. First thing we need to really talk about is the organizational perspective. It's often the case that many organizations have very short-term perspectives, that they focus on the bottom line, they're looking for quick results, and they've created an us versus them mentality, both within the organization and outside. Where a long-term orientation is focused on the process, it's sustained effort towards results over time, and a willingness to subordinate oneself to a broader purpose. In the end of the day, strong organizations that have this futuristic orientation clearly know their values, their mission, and the vision that they have for their organization. When we talk about a mission and visions, it's what we do and how we're doing it. And again, a strong organization knows what they stand for, know why they do what they do. They have a clear definition of success. They seek to understand before they're being understood. They know who their stakeholders are, and they know themselves. And as far as that, within their organization, they have clear leadership. They've established a culture. They have a philosophy and a clearly communicated mission statement that there's buy-in with. And that drives their programs, their pathways, and their marketing efforts, and ultimately the education of stakeholders. There, you have a strong organization that clearly knows who they are and what they want to be. Now, getting to the heart of the matter, let's take a look at your situation. To start off, can you give me 5 words that define who you are as an organization? 5 words that are important to you and your organization. 5 words you would put up on a wall or a fence around your field. As you take a look at the picture there of Villanova's basketball facility, they have their core values up on their wall and what they're doing. I'd like to think that after getting those 15 words down, that they're all the same, that you clearly have some strong values of understanding the core of who you are as an organization. From there, we take it one step further. And in one sentence, can you answer the question, what is the purpose of your club's existence? A second one would be, how will the club conduct itself in fulfilling that purpose? Are they going to do it ethically, enthusiastically, in a positive manner? What services are your club going to provide in fulfilling that purpose? Again, if you go back to it, if you're about developing an elite athlete, well, what services are provided and how do you plan on providing them? If it's about participation and getting kids engaged in sports, okay? And again, how are you going to provide them and what it is that you're going to do for them? Next is, how do you define success? There's so many different ways you can measure it. And we talked about it in another presentation, that your outputs are ultimately your definitions of success. Is it winning games, producing players? Is it increasing retention? Is it strengthening the culture of the sport in your local area? Are you contributing to the strength of the culture of the sport nationally? Are you trying to win national championships? There's no right answer, but an organization needs to know what success is defined for them, and then they can aspire to that. So if you answer these questions, you really have established a purpose for yourself. You know what you're doing, how you plan on doing it, what are the services that you're going to provide and how you're going to deliver those, and you know what success means. Now, in order to be moving towards your mission, you can develop strategic initiatives. And these strategic initiatives are tied to you to ultimately the development of a vision. Now, we talk about what's known as the SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. You're giving an opportunity to take a look at your organization and find out what things we need to do. They also talk about in terms of a gap analysis, taking a look at areas and comparing yourself to your competitors where you may see they're stronger. And instead of saying we're going to get as good as they are, we're going to focus in on areas that are incrementally going to narrow that gap between where we are and where we want to be. From there, you develop an implementation plan that focuses on your human resources. Are you going to be hiring people? Are you going to continue to rely on volunteers? How many people that you need? And if you're hiring people, you're making a statement as far as that's an important component of achieving your success and fulfilling your mission. Financial is, what's it going to cost? Okay, everything has a cost. There's a saying that goes that where you spend your money is a statement of your priorities. Your physical plan. In many cases, there's sports that you do need a physical plan as far as facilities are concerned. Courts, pools, fields, availability, all of those things. And then lastly, Who are the key stakeholders who are going to help you make this thing happen? And then lastly, having that metric of measure success. So think with that in mind, let's talk about where you want to be. And again, going back to strategic initiatives are tied to ultimately you achieving this vision. So let's have another exercise again for you. What are 5 words you want associated with your organization? Hopefully you can refer back when we were talking about values earlier and bring some of those words in there. What are 5 of players that are retained, numbers of players that have gone to a higher level? Are there championships run? Is it something non-measurable, just saying players, the participants falling in love with their sport and having a good time socially? What's the ideal perfect organization? Describe what it looks like, feels like, does, doesn't do, achieves. And again, this is a great conversation to have among your key stakeholders of that, then closing your eye and envisioning what it's like to pull up to your club today. And then lastly, describe your club successes 5 years from now. A neat exercise, maybe some of you've done it as an individual, is to write your epitaph. Sit down and say that if your club ended, reflect back on what it did. Because in many ways, what you're doing is saying what you want to be. Now, I use this Faust model here across several things as far as an analysis of clubs. And these are all variables that are associated with achieving sports success. We have inputs at the bottom, which are the financial support and the parental engagement, as well as your governance structure. We talk about the athletes that you bring in, and that serves as your foundation and your participation. Then we take those inputs and we put them into how we use sports sciences and what we do, the competition opportunities we offer to our athletes. Are we working and developing our coaches, and are we able to pay coaches to keep them engaged with us? Do we offer money so that or offers financial support so no kids denied the opportunity to participate? Do we have adequate facilities? And do we have an athlete development platform that we work our athletes through? And are we being more scientific in the identification of the talent as it moves up our pipeline and pathway? These are all potential gaps that we can be addressing and looking forward towards our vision. That's tied into our resource allocation. Now, I know a lot of people just talk about missions and visions and they think they read it once and they walk away from it. But I think your mission should be considered in every decision that we make. And when I just a minute ago talked about this idea of financial, human, time, and facilities, that how we allocate those should be tied back to our mission and understanding who we are, why we do what we do, how we want to do things, and then also ultimately what we want to become as a club. Now, for many organizations, these may not be the best practices. Well, let's just do what we've always done before. And we give away, whether it be time, money, positions, money, field space, whatever it might be, that there's no strategic gains. It's just one-offs doing it. We're asking others for what others are doing. We may bring our personal bias, and it's not about the best of the organization. It's what I like or what I feel is right. And often we're focusing on today and not thinking about strategically further down the road. And that's, again, knowing our vision, that's going to who we want to be, and 2, aspiring to what we want to become. Now, the challenge in resource allocation is very complex. We have multiple objectives. For example, a club may have a performance aspect, but also a participation. We often call it travel versus in-house. We may have multiple units with varying degrees of abilities and needs. What am I saying is that, again, if we have a performance side that's travel, that's trying to excel, produce elite players, and we have recreation, they both have different needs and abilities, and they're also making requests as far as multiple alternatives that we're also considering. So again, becomes difficult if people are coming at you all the time. That I like to say, your mission statement can be the bad guy. The mission is that this is what we're doing, and this isn't tied to what we're doing. And I don't want to say it in a bad way of the mission statement being the bad guy, but it's not you. You're saying, hey, we all agree. We buy into this mission. The allocation of this resource towards this objective or alternative isn't tied back to that mission. You're staying true to who you are and what you want to be. So the solution is this idea of having this structured plan and a mean to evaluate if are we spending money on who we want to be, And or are we spending money for who we aspire to be? And having that process in place and having people all buy in and offering their input on the appropriateness of that allocation of that resource. So the simple thing is when we talk about strategic initiatives is if you have that project that you think is tied to your mission, find it and say why it's being stated, where you talk about what it's going to take people-wise, how much it's going to cost, where we're going to be doing it, and do we have the facilities or the resources that in that way that you're going to measure the success of this strategic initiative that's tied to who we are, that's stated in our mission, and it's also tied to who we want to be as far as the vision that we have for our organization. So in closing, when we think about the mission, our values, our missions, and our vision, it should be driving everything we do with an organization. An organization should be strategic in making decisions, one, to continue to be who they are, that's stated in the purpose as far as your mission is concerned, but then also what they want to be, which is clearly stated in your vision. My challenge to you now is to go back, take a look at these questions again, and reflect upon those and sit down with the leadership of your organization or your staff and start having these conversations and start coming to terms. Sit down and revisit if you have a mission statement and see if you're still living up to it or does it need to be modified. Have you considered where you want to be 5 and 10 years from now? If not, you should be acting today in order to be who you want to be tomorrow. Thank you for this time, and hopefully you'll take your advice and go back and do some of these exercises.